Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Tavana Denise, and I'm a physical therapist, life coach, and I call myself a rebel because I'm on a mission to save as many physical therapists as I can from burnout, boredom, and glass ceilings. And part of how I do this is to help physical therapists create businesses that leverage their degrees without opening a clinic. And for those who are less inclined to start their own businesses, I use my life coaching skills and run a series of workshops and coach individuals on how to prevent and treat burnout. So that's a little bit about me, but what are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to talk about physical therapists in wellness and fitness and how I even got to this topic of wellness and fitness is because I was starting to get some clients coming to me who were interested in going off and doing something on the side while they were thinking about bridging to something more substantial and doing something on their own. And I hesitated to work with them because I wasn't clear on what exactly were the rules, what is in scope, what is out of scope when it comes to our license. Does our physical therapy license and degree allow us to take on personal training clients, fitness clients, health, wellness clients? Can we coach? What are the rules? And part of the reason why this is so important to me, because as I'm in some of the therapy groups that some of you all might be in, is that I'm noticing a trend. People are getting burned out. They want to do something else. They want to do something more, but a lot of them are in debt for like $100,000. They've taken the time, the energy, the blood, the sweat, the tears, and they've gone on and gotten this degree. And now they're like, what do I do with it? Working in the clinic is not working for me anymore. Working in the hospital, the nursing home, whatever you're doing is just not working anymore. So what else can you do? And so that got us into an interesting question and answer, more like question section in a few of the groups that I'm in, because I had an opportunity to talk to a health law attorney about these questions. And so I just polled the group, like, what would you want to know in terms of what would you want to know? And I apologize, you guys, I cannot see, for some reason, I can't see any of the comments. So let me pause for a second and see if I can see comments, because I want to be able to answer your questions during this as well. And I gotta apologize, I do not see any comments. So if I can figure that out, I will jump back in and get the comments. But for right now, I do have questions already pulled in, and that I will answer the questions. If you have any additional questions that come up, please feel free to put them in the comments, and I will make sure that I take a look at them and get an answer back to you as soon as possible and when I have them. So I wanted to answer the questions, and I thought, surely I can't be the only one with these questions. So let me ask the groups of physical therapists, occupational therapists, what questions do you have if you had the opportunity to ask a health law attorney something? And unfortunately, that conversation, that appointment got canceled because of some type of conflict of interest. But what it did, besides start a wild goose chase that I'll tell you about in a second, what it did was it forced me to actually go dig and find the question. So I would love to, even though I can't see it right now, I would love to know how many of you all, if at all, have read your State Practice Act and or anything on the APTA website with regard to wellness, fitness, health, maintenance, any of that stuff. I would love to know how many of you all have actually read it, because every 2 years, we in the state of Georgia have to take the ethics jurisprudence exam, and that requires us to go 4 hours and sit through and listen to the different ethics and jurisprudence, and we go through whatever updates there are. But had I actually ever read the whole thing? I don't think so. If I had read the entire Practice Act, I think it was when I first moved to Georgia. And if you see here, I got on my Washington, D.C. shirt because I am originally from Maryland, right outside of D.C. So I'm representing that today as well. But I'm here in Atlanta. So I just want to put that out there. One, all of the answers are based on the Georgia State Practice Act and whatever I could find in the APTA website. And I wrote this wonderful little disclaimer for you all because I am not an attorney. So I want to make sure that you understand that, one, I'm not an attorney. This information is based on my interpretation of what I read in the Georgia Physical Therapy Act, although many states have adopted similar languages. And I reviewed a few of the other state practice acts, and the language still is a bit different. So you yourself should consult your state board, read your state practice act, and or contact an attorney if you have some questions about anything that we're talking about here today. Before you engage in anything regarding wellness, fitness, maintenance, anything that you have a question about, you want to reach out to those resources. So on to the wild goose chase. After I had polled everyone and they had the questions, I was like, okay, I get to ask these questions and I'm going to come back and we'll have answers. And it got canceled. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And it was good because I read the Practice Act, but let me tell you, I called the APTA first. They said, call your state board. So I called my state board. They said, first of all, first question out of the lady's mouth was, what's your license number? And I'm thinking, why do you need that? Why can't you just answer a question? But you have to submit these questions in writing. So just be aware, if you contact your state board, they might do that as well. But I thought it was a little strange. I also reached out to the Compact office, who they were the only ones who were really helpful as much as they could be and open with answering questions over the phone. So kudos to, I believe his name is TJ out there. He answered all of the questions that he could in Compact. Then I called the FSBPT, no help. They said, contact your state board. And so I also finally decided to contact the PTAG, the PT Association of Georgia. And they too said, submit your question in writing. One of the board members will get back to you. So I am still waiting for answers from everyone. And just for an update, they have said that it can take up to 15 business days. So we got about 3 weeks to wait for those answers. Now, why is this important? I've also been in groups like that, therapists that are looking at telehealth, concierge and mobile medicine, going the non-clinical PT route. And all of this is heavy on our minds because we want to be able to do more with our degrees. We see people out there that are personal trainers and wellness coaches and health coaches and other people who are claiming that they can solve back pain, that they can help you become healthy and fit. And they're playing in our space. And quite frankly, it's a little bit maddening because we see people that have nowhere near the education, the experience, the expertise that we have going out and saying, hey, I can do this thing. And it's also quite frustrating because they are, many of them, uncertified and also untethered. So they can put up a shingle and say, hey, I do fitness, personal training, health, wellness coaching, whatever, and nobody is regulating this. They have no restrictions. They can do online marketing, create courses, they can do whatever they want to. But when it comes to the physical therapist, a lot of us are sitting back and quite frankly afraid because we just don't know where does physical therapy begin? Where does physical therapy end and where does wellness begin? And so I want to answer some of those questions for you today. As I posted in the announcement, we're going to cover questions like, what legally differentiates wellness treatment from skilled PT? How does documentation differ from PT to wellness treatment? Where does the PT begin, end, and the wellness begin. Do we need any types of additional certifications? Are we being held to our highest license and certifications? Some of us have went on to get other certifications. Some of us have other degrees. And also, can or must you disclose that you are a physical therapist in your advertising and marketing? So these are some of the questions that came up, and I'm going to give you, quite frankly, the highlights. I have highlighted things that I want to answer for you guys today. So let's go down. And again, the disclaimer, I am not an attorney. This information is based off of my interpretation of what I read here, okay? I'd highly encourage you to read your State Practice Act, reach out to your state board, reach out to the APTA if you have some questions, very specific questions regarding what you want to do, because at the end of the day, we still are licensed and we need to uphold that until we know any different. Okay. So the first question that people were asking was, what legally differentiates wellness treatment from skilled physical therapy treatment? And I'm just going to give you some snippets of the actual questions that were answered and give you my take on the answer. So one person asked, how do we know what the difference is between wellness and PT for things like going over state lines that would be helpful? And I see Rob Vining is watching, and he does a really great job on his podcast, Telehealth 20, giving you a shout out there as I listened to him talk to the compact officer, and I think his name was TJ. Maybe you can correct me, Rob, if you're still watching. On how does telehealth work? Because if we're going across lines and if we're working with wellness clients, we really need to hold up our license, whether you have TJ. Yes. Okay. So whether you have a license here in one state or the other, you need to make sure that you have the compact license. And I'm just going to give you the definition of what physical therapy is. I think we know, but I thought this was an interesting definition here. There are several components to the definition of physical therapy in the Georgia State Practice Act, but here is section C. It says reducing the risk of injury, impairment, activity limitations, participation restrictions, and disability, including the promotion and maintenance of health, fitness, and wellness in populations of all ages. So that tells you right there that physical therapy is within the scope of practice. Wellness, fitness, health is within the scope of practice of a physical therapist. So I'm going to look through and answer the rest of these questions with that lens, that if you are doing anything fitness, health, wellness, maintenance, you are doing physical therapy, and therefore you need to follow the State Practice Act with regard to your license. Okay. So, and that answers someone's question. It says, my biggest concern is legally I do not cease to be a PT, but I'm not functioning in that capacity. Well, actually, you are functioning in that capacity. Another person asked about more clarification around working under your scope, below your scope. Can you get in trouble for not billing or documenting as a PT when you're in wellness and health coaching? I believe the answer is yes, but would like clarification or citation. So if they are considering, which it says right here that they're considering the maintenance of health, fitness, and wellness as a part of the scope of our practice, then you need to be billing and documenting. And I'm actually going to jump to another section, at least in the Georgia Practice Act, on ways you can lose your license, because it directly responds to that question. And now I'm looking for it. I can't find it. Okay, but I do want to just show you here. I do not see it right here. I haven't notated it well enough, but you do need to be documenting as a physical therapist. So if part of your practice when you're doing what you traditionally consider to be PT is documentation and performing examinations and evaluations, then you need to be doing it now. Okay. Someone else said, especially a PT with a CSCS certification. Well, it's all under your guide to practice as a physical therapist. Someone wanted to know If we're licensed as a physical therapist and also become a certified personal trainer and work as a personal trainer and not attempt to actually do anything beyond the scope of a personal trainer, then will we still be required to document and bill as a physical therapist? And I think one of the important distinctions here is, okay, you can get your certification as a personal trainer, and I think that just adds to our education as a PT because they could not teach us everything in school. However, that just gives you more tools in your tool belt, right? Whenever we go to our Con Ed courses, we just get an additional tool. So if you go off and get a certification in CSCS or personal trainer, you just have another tool in the tool belt as a physical therapist. So you are actually working within your scope as a PT, and you will be required to document, as I understand it. In terms of the billing, that's where it gets a little bit tricky, I think, for people. And I think the billing is, if you are charging insurance companies, you still need to follow the 8-minute rule and all of that wonderful stuff. But most of us, and I want to go back and say this, that when we're talking about the wellness, fitness, health aspect, most of us, if I'm not mistaken, are considering those to be cash pay patients. So the billing is a little bit different. Now, some people, and I'm in some of the cash-based clinic groups, some of them are providing their clients or patients, however you want to call them, because it actually says in the APTA website, clients and patients. It uses both that language. So some people are providing their clients with super bills. If your insurance or if your client's insurance accepts will reimburse for wellness, that's fine, but you need to make sure if you're providing it with a super bill, you need to be billing according to the 8-minute rule. So there's that. Where's the next question here? Yes, they do use both terms. And I was like, they got me. Okay. Now this was a really interesting question. For personal training and teaching group fitness, do we have to have a separate certification? Answer we already know is no. But here's something interesting. Do we have to perform evals on fitness and wellness clients, even if we are teaching group fitness classes? So what I did with some of these questions, what I did was compile all of the questions that I got from everybody that asked one. And I think it was about 36 questions in all. And I kind of put them together into categories so that I could read through everything and answer them. But then some questions still remained. So everything that I see and everything that we know now is you are functioning as a physical therapist. But it says nothing about group fitness. So then it makes me think about when I used to work in subacute rehab, is that like group treatment? I don't know. And so for right now, I would consider that's what you want to look at. Now, my question would be, if you're functioning in a group fitness situation, and I do a lot of group fitness as a participant, I could not even imagine every time somebody came to the studio doing an evaluation on every single person. And how do you manage and keep up with all of that that's going on? It seems kind of nuts. And so that's one of the clarification questions that I'm going to be asking them. Somebody talked about that. Okay. Now, here's another question. Where does the PT begin and the wellness end? Right? Where does the PT begin and the wellness end? For example, you are working with a person in a wellness program. They develop knee pain or plantar fasciitis. What do we need to do in this instant? This is a question that I'm asking the board because in the state of Georgia, we have direct access, right? So I said to them, I would imagine that the person becomes a direct access patient and we must shift to the regulations for the direct access patients, because in the state of Georgia, they have different rules in terms of how many visits, and we have direct access, but after 8 visits or 21 days in the state of Georgia, you must consult with another licensed practitioner of the healing arts. That's what it's called in the state of Georgia. And they have another something that tells you who those people are. So would this person, the follow-up question would be, would this person need to be cleared by an MD to resume the program as a wellness or fitness client? So that's where it's gray area again. Now, I thought this was interesting. Hopefully I can find this quickly. In Georgia, and I would really encourage you all to look at your Practice Act, because I didn't know. I've been out of the game way too long. I've been out of school way too long, so I had no clue about this when it came to direct access, right? Because if we are functioning within our scope, within our capacity as physical therapists, then we need to adhere to the direct access laws for our state. So in Georgia, it says you can, this is among the reasons why you can lose your license. If you do not have a doctorate in physical therapy or equivalent degree from an accredited institution plus 2 years of clinical practice experience. Now, are they counting that after you got the degree or before? I don't know, but that's a gray area. Postgraduate certification, you can do the doctorate plus AP, American Board of Physical Therapy Specialties Board certification, or residency or fellowship training, or, this is for us that don't have a doctorate, 5 years of clinical practice experience. So those are the ways you can get around that for direct access. So we've answered the question, are we being held to our highest level of education or license? The answer is yes. So it doesn't matter if this one person said if they got a certification in health coaching and they have a CSCS and they have a Pilates certification, doesn't matter, at least in the state of Georgia. They hold you to that PT license. Here is an interesting thing that came up actually the other day, maybe yesterday, in one of the groups, where I thought it was interesting, and I'm not mad at them actually for thinking this way, but I think it's a little extreme, where some therapists are considering relinquishing their license because it feels like it's too binding, it's too restrictive. So a little bit in line with that, one question that came up was, for marketing or advertising purposes, are you required to, or are you allowed to disclose that you are also a physical therapist? And I think this question, are you allowed to disclose that you're a physical therapist, came up for those people who weren't sure that wellness and fitness was within our scope of practice. So we already know that it is, but it actually says, for Georgia at least, that you must tell people that you are a physical therapist. So it says right here, a physical therapist shall clearly inform the public of his or her professional credential as a physical therapist. And then conversely, people that don't have the credentials cannot use physical therapy, physical therapist, physiotherapist, any of our letters, PT, CPT, DPT, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So that answers that. You really should be putting your credentials on there if you are a physical therapist, even if you are functioning in the wellness, fitness, health space. Now, here's an interesting question that I had, because I feel like we're in a really great time in the world where the world is getting smaller and people are going to Dr. Google and the internet for answers, and we actually have them. And so then the question becomes, if we're the experts in movement and all of these other wonderful things that we have our specialties in, are we allowed to go onto the internet and actually tell people what we do, what we know, how we can help, all of that stuff? Because that's really just marketing 101. Finding people that have a problem, letting them know that you can solve it. And so the question that I have, and I think a lot of us have, are, can we teach online courses? And other people have asked about coaching. Can we perform online coaching? I consider that to be very, very close to telehealth. And if we have regulations around telehealth, then it makes me wonder if we're allowed to coach across lines. So yes, you can do online. but it makes it kind of gray, and it makes it kind of, so the jury's still out about doing coaching online. Okay. Rob says asynchronous would fall into that category. If you could, Rob, can you put in a definition? Because the word seems fabulous, but I don't happen to know what it means, right? And Sarah's saying it depends on your state, for sure. And that's why I've been saying time and time again, please, please, please. I am not an attorney. I'm speaking about what I've read and reread in the state of Georgia. Please refer to your individual state practice act and what you all have going on there. But this is just general based on what I'm seeing so far and what I've read so far. So wanting to know, can we do the courses? I would imagine that it's like writing a book that is open for the public to purchase. What about if the course is on impairments versus if the course is on wellness topic? Okay, so asynchronous. Oh, video sent to a patient and they watch it and send it back. Thank you. Makes perfect sense when I break down the word. Okay. No problem. Yes, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense, Rob. Thank you for that. Let's see. Do we need a disclaimer if we're teaching some type of online course that is open or available to the general public? So I'll be waiting for an answer from that one. Let's see. And there were a few OTs that submitted questions, and I got to tell you guys, I'm a PT, so I really don't have a lot of information for you guys. But again, I would say, please go to your specific practice act. There are a few things very specific I want to kind of read through here. I think those were the main questions. And what I'm going to do is for those questions that we still had, there was a gray area or we didn't have clarification on, I'm going to post an update to all of this stuff, probably in written form, or maybe I'll do another video. I'm a reader. I like to skim, but I'll do that. But this one comes direct from the APTA website. So I just want to read a couple of things to you all for clarification for those that are coming in a little bit later. The physical therapist's role in prevention, wellness, fitness, health promotion, and management of disease and disability. So one of the things that they're saying for our role is we need to be incorporating medical and health history into a plan of care. So that means that we need to be doing evaluations so that we know what the medical and health history is before we develop an exercise program for a fit individual. Let's see. Of course, we need to apply the best available evidence in selecting and prescribing exercise. I thought this was interesting, using skills in behavior change to promote healthy lifestyles. So that goes towards the health and wellness coaches. And this was really interesting for us too. Number 10, part of our role is adopting healthy lifestyle choices for themselves that include engaging in active forms of transportation. So I guess we're riding our bikes to work now, and meeting national guidelines for participation in physical activities and exercise. Okay. There is a section in that wellness, fitness, health promotion, and it gives, they have pulled out, hopefully y'all can see this a little bit, they have pulled out the very specifics for different states. They don't have all 50 states in here, but you can kind of read through this. I will have to go back and find the link and put it into here. But they have language, 3 pages of it for a lot of the states. If you want to look through that. Okay. Any other things? Oh, some people, especially from the non-clinical PTs that are not really interested in doing one-on-one work with people, telehealth and things, it is within our scope of practice too, and this is section E of what is physical therapy in the Georgia Practice Act. Engaging in administration, consultation, education, teaching, research, telehealth, there you go, and the provision of instructional, consultative, education, and other advisory services. That was a mouthful. So we can do all of that. And that's great. But do we have to stay within our state? I think that's the biggest thing. And I like that word that Rob taught me today, this evening, asynchronous. If we do it like that, seems like it's okay. Hey, Nisha. Oh, we got an OT on the group. Great. Thanks for joining us. not to ignore any of the rest of y'all. Thank you all for being here. Okay, we talked about that you must clearly tell the public that you're a physical therapist. Oh, and for those of us that are upset about the personal trainers and the health coaches and all these other people that are doing things, at least in Georgia, it says nothing in this code shall be construed as preventing or restricting practice, service, or activities of any person licensed under any other law of this state who is engaged in professional or trade practices properly conducted under the authority of such licensing laws. So there's that, which means we just got to step up our marketing game. No problem. It's my pleasure, Kate. We just got to step up our marketing game. And that's where one of the things that I teach my clients is how to brand yourself. When I tell people that I am the Dean of Admissions for the PT Business Academy, and what we do, our mission is to save as many PTs as we can from burnout, boredom, and glass ceilings. And one of the ways that we do that is by teaching therapists how to leverage their degrees to create businesses without opening a clinic, right? So it's a very specific problem for a very really as therapists. Unfortunately, this is not something that we learned in school, but it's going to be very helpful because we've already figured out we can play in the fitness, wellness, health, maintenance space with our degrees. We can play in the education, training, and consultation or consultative space with our degrees. And so we need to be the front runners and getting out there and showing people what we know, why we're the experts, and why we do what we do, instead of waiting for the doctors to give us referrals and waiting for other people to come around. We just need to be a little more assertive in that regard. This is specifically for Shoshana, who's an OT based out of Israel. She said that she wanted to know if she could come in. Well, not if she could come in. She wanted to know if she could work with people in the U.S. And again, this is from the PT Practice Act. A lot of the things are similar, but what it says here is a physical therapist licensed. Oh, and this is Philippe Arroyo, who is, I think he's in the UK right now, but I also believe he's an OT. A physical therapist licensed in another state or country or employed by the U.S. government, United States government, conducting a teaching or clinical demonstration in connection with an academic or continuing education program, they can come in, even if they're licensed in another state or, another country, which was exciting. So I wonder if that means we can go to other people's countries. Okay, now on the flip side of things, let's see what Rob said real quick. Yeah, right. So we need to figure that language read, we could go to another state and teach. And I've seen that plenty of times where people come in and teach us Con Ed courses from other states. So that's wonderful and great. But I would like to see, how does that work, or how does that translate over the internet and the airwaves? Because I could just reach out, like, I think, Rob, are you in Colorado? I think you're like right there, and we're talking right now. So why can't we work with patients across state lines? So I'm really excited for Compact to, get it together. All right. So how can you lose your license? This is important, guys. Listen up. I highlighted a few things how you can lose your license. Performed physical therapy care and services without examination and evaluation of patients or clients. There you go, Rob, both languages. Oregon, sorry about that. Patients or clients in order to determine physical therapy diagnosis, prognosis, plan of intervention, which in the case of patients who have self-referred, direct access, means that a physical therapist has, and then they go into different things. So that does mean that we do need to be performing evals on fitness patients, because fitness, wellness, health is part of our scope of practice. And this is where we were talking about 21 days or 8 visits, at least in the state of Georgia. If something changes in their status, if they're no longer a fitness or wellness person and they've got a knee pain, back pain, neck pain, through the shoulder, back out, whatever. Let's see, how else do they want us? Okay, now the cool thing about this, we were talking about how they have different rules in the state of Georgia if we're doing fitness or wellness. So what they say here is that 21-day 8 rule, at least in the state of Georgia, the day and visit limitations contained in this subparagraph shall not apply in the case of services provided for health promotion, wellness, fitness, or maintenance purposes. So you don't have those limitations on the number of days or visits in that case. But again, and I'm paraphrasing here, if they develop an ailment or an issue, that means that you need to go to the, what did I call them? The practitioner of the health arts or something like that. That's what they call them here in the state of Georgia. Okay. People with chronic ailments. If in the case of a patient diagnosed within the previous 90 days with a chronic musculoskeletal condition and noted by a current relevant document from an appropriate licensed healthcare provider, they consider that where you don't have to be held to the direct access for limitations. So that's awesome. We already talked about how they have some different rules and who can see direct access and when. So that was good. They are saying that the physical therapist shall provide initial evaluation, periodic re-evaluation, and documentation of findings. Documented episode of care for each patient, including the response to the plan of intervention at the time of completion of the episode of care. So yeah, as far as I understand, Rob, as long as there's no diagnosis that a person is coming to you with, like if I say I'm perfectly healthy, I just want to get more fit, good to go under your, because if you have direct access, which I was surprised to find in that APTA document, some states still don't have direct access, right? You're good to go. You still need to be providing an eval, re-eval, documentation each episode of care. Now, how detailed do you need to be or want to be with that? I think just to cover, the CYA, cover yourself kind of thing. And so that's what I would say there. Oh, here's another thing. Someone asked about liability coverage. A physical therapist shall ensure that he or she has liability coverage, either independently or provided by the entity which he or she is employed. So I usually carry, because I've been a contractor for a number of years, I've had my own liability insurance, but I recently found out HPSO has a consultant rider. So if you're not treating, but you want to do some consultation, ergonomics, that wonderful stuff, I've heard some people wanting to do things like that, you need to make sure that you have your own liability insurance when you're stepping out and doing these side hustle patients. And you also need to make sure if you're doing consultation that you need that, okay? Of course, you need to communicate the overall plan of care with the client or patient and include accurate documentation and billing of the services provided, which answers somebody else's question from way back in the beginning. Let me make sure. Okay, so that's what I have. I think, let's see, okay. I see Rob is saying that Missouri has a similar statute as well, got there through the PT Compact. Oh, I'm so jealous we don't have that here in Georgia. Let's see. Can I see more of this without messing it up? I can't see the rest of what you said, Rob, and I don't want to mess up this live. But yeah, HPSO is super cheap. Super cheap. And telehealth is legal in the state of Georgia, because I read the words just a few minutes ago. So that's great. The biggest thing that I could tell you guys is it's a big, hairy mess, a gray area. Our hands are still very much tied in a lot of the aspects. But here's the summary rundown for anybody. Thank you. Anybody that's catching this at the tail end. Summary is wellness, health, fitness, maintenance, preventative. All of that is within the scope of practice for a physical therapist. So if that's within the scope of the practice, anything that you would do with a patient that you traditionally thought was a PT patient, you must do with your wellness, fitness, health, all of those people. That includes documenting. That includes the way that you bill. If you choose to do super bills, most of us are talking about cash with wellness. The other thing that we learned today is that you must carry your own liability insurance. HPSO is the gold standard right now. I've had liability insurance from another place before. I can't think of it, but just go with HPSO. They don't pay me anything, but it's just easy to remember, easy to do. They have a lot. So that's the long and short of it. I will be back with an update once or if I can get the answers to that stuff with regard to online courses, the specifics in terms of how they classify online coaching with wellness, fitness, all of that wonderful stuff. I think that to be on the safe side, consider that telehealth, since we've already determined that wellness and fitness is part of your scope of practice. Let's see, what else did we need clarification on? Oh, group fitness. There was something else. So thank you all so much for being here. I will stay on for awesome. Glad you could join us, Nick. Glad you all could join us for this. I'm so excited about where we are and where we're going. And I'm really excited about the underground PT groups that I'm a part of. Excellent. I want to give shout outs to different groups that I'm in. We got the concierge PTs, telehealth PTs, non-clinical PT. Oh dear, digital, I always mix this up. Healthcare marketing, digital healthcare marketing, something like that, which I think I really want to get the answers to the online courses and coaching for those guys, because a lot of those guys are doing some really great things, what we were talking about in terms of Facebook ads and non-traditional marketings to reach directly to, thank you, Rob, reach out directly to the consumer, the people that really, really need our help. And so I think it was really important for us to, and if you all can help me in any way, and really start to ask your state boards, ask the APTA, ask them for clarification, because we need to know, like, just how handcuffed are we? How tied are we in terms of being able to get out there in a bigger way? The more the internet becomes accessible to people, the more people are getting out there. When I say people, we're talking about just the Joe Schmo off the street saying, hey, digital healthcare marketing, something like that. Just put the words digital and healthcare, it's going to come up, Sarah. But the more people come out and they just throw up their shingle on the proverbial internet front store, and they're out there saying, I can do this and I can do that. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of us are having burnout, because I thought that part of Vision 2020 was to have more autonomy. Why we went to the shift to the DPT was for that autonomy. And then here we are in the best time to be alive and to be a potential business owner. And there are restrictions on what we're doing. So I would highly, thanks, Nick, and encourage you all to reach out to your state board and get the clarification in terms of what can we do online. If you want to create an online digital course, if you want to stop it, Sarah. Right. So we have to go and find out what we can do, because here's the thing that I tell people about burnout. A lot of times people suffer because they don't think they have options, because they don't think they have a choice. And I'm saying we're adult enough, we're professional enough to say, I want to do X, Y, or Z. And what do I need to do to make that happen? And who do I need to ask to make that happen? So I think it's our responsibility to really step up and leverage our degrees and really show the world what we're made of. We don't need to sit back and wait for the APTA to do anything for us. As long as we know what we're doing and we have the rights based on our license for the state that we're in, I say go for it. But before you do that, make sure you have read and understood your Practice Act. And I would even go as far as somebody said, well, I don't necessarily want to pay an attorney, but I'm just telling you on my reading level what I understand. It's always a good idea to invest the money to find out what is right, what is legal. and then do the work. So I'm so glad you all joined me. You know where to find me, at Tavana Denise, pretty much everywhere on the internet. We're at the PTBizAcademy.com if you want to jump on there and grab the PDF, 5 ways to make money as a PT without opening a clinic. We're there. And I'm also doing some research on burnout. So if you know anybody I'm looking at people that have been a therapist for 20 years or more, what keeps it fresh for them? I'm also looking at, thanks Rob, I'm also looking at what the people that were they are now ex-PTs, what caused them to get out. And we're starting to do lit review and research as I take people through an official burnout program, and we're studying them based on a scientifically based burnout index. So that's exciting work that we're doing there. I think we're in the best profession ever. I think that we just have been working in the same way for such a long time, and it's time for a change. So thank you all for joining me. I'm looking forward to the next one. Have a great one.